Hi, everybody. Welcome to Nurse Table Talk. I'm Nurse Kathy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nurse Julie.
We were just talking about what to title this because we can't really come up with an appropriate title. What did we come up with, Julie?
What to do if a loved one passes.
Julie's got like 8 pages of notes on this. She did her homework, so I think we're going to be able to give everybody some really good information. But we did want to talk today about how to prepare or what to think about now when you're in a good place for that future time of when you're not in a good place. Maybe your husband passes away or your wife passes, past the emotional part, but all the stuff that you have to do afterwards. And so Julie did a deep dive and really broke it down into some really good comprehensive pieces and parts. And we were kind of hoping to just go over those briefly, create a tick list for our viewers of things to keep in mind.
And I also wanted to say an advanced directives could be something to really consider to kind of have things lined up to make it a little easier. And picked up a booklet on an aftercare guidebook from a local funeral home, because I thought, what, if something does happen to my husband, I didn't know much about the process as far as where do I start.
So when I lost my folks a couple years ago, I really ended up kind of having like a lap full of things to take care of. And I didn't know what those things were until someone said, well, have you done this yet? And I was like, oh no, I need to add that to the list, because the list it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. Usually people start right at the funeral home. You can walk in the door and sit down and say, I'm interested in pre-planning. What do I need to take care of? And they will literally hand you the guidebook that Julie just showed you. And that's a great place. But if you're not comfortable walking in to a funeral home and having that conversation, there are other things for you to just make a list of and then plan in the future. So they always, usually when someone dies, it encompasses their whole entire life. So their banking, their job, their assets, their bills, everything. So the very first thing that you have to do is you have to get yourself enough death certificates. Your death certificate is how you prove the death of that person and your relationship to that person. So not everybody walks around with a manila envelope full of death certificates, but at a time where everyone wants one, you need to have enough, because once you give them to somebody, they don't give them back. So don't leave the funeral home without 10.
And the funeral home, they help guide you to start the process of getting the death certificate.
They do. I shouldn't have said it that way, but yes, you will get the death certificates usually from the funeral home. I mean, that was my experience, so let me just say that. And then from that, they were able to get me as many copies as I needed. So for me, in my personal situation, I needed 20.
Wow.
No. Yeah. So make sure you get at least 10, because you're going to need to hand those to your bank. You're going to need to hand those to anybody who holds assets, retirement accounts, insurance companies. All of those people are going to want a death certificate. So make sure you get enough of those.
Right. I read that, you want to kind of get to the bank like as soon as possible to withdraw money, so you have some, because once the death certificate is presented to the bank, they freeze the assets.
They do. And that was another thing that I did. I took out enough money to take care of some basic things on their behalf. Yes, those accounts do get frozen, and you do have to have a death certificate in order to access those. And that's not even the half of it. So even before we even get to the point where you're calling funeral homes and you're doing all this planning, you're going to want to make sure in the living moments of your life that you are the beneficiary on these accounts, that your spouse or loved one or whoever this happens to be, whoever you're connected to and affected by, that you are a beneficiary. You're on, you are their HIPAA person at the doctor's office. You're connected to them on paper. So those relationships will help stand up in a court of law. So should it get that far, but that you are legally bound to these accounts and these people, so that your stuff doesn't end up, in limbo, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
The other things I read about was securing the property. Like you said, you have a relationship. So now you need to get together the obituary, and the funeral home can help give templates on how to do that.
Correct.
And then if they have any pets, that's something else that you might want to have a discussion of before anything should ever happen,
Mm-hmm. When I worked in hospice, one of the things that broke my heart the most, I think, was the people who died with no will and no direction. And a lot of times those people did have pets. And a lot of times those pets, believe it or not, there's some really cool people in the world who take in animals after the owners pass away and just keep them until they can be adopted out. Plan for them too, because they are part of your family, and they need to be considered.
And Kathy, one topic that really surprised me was digital assets, like your social media accounts, your Facebook, any of that. So now there are specific things that people need to, like your photos are on secured by different.
Yeah.
Anybody has stored them. And so those things need to be kind of taken into account too. And that's such a new topic that
it is. One of the things I was so grateful was that my dad was super anal. He was mindful enough to write down all of his usernames and passwords to all of his accounts. If you really stand back and really look, very few people get paper bills. Very few people bank at the bank. Very few people walk into their automobile insurance company or the utility company anymore and pay their bill. Everything is done online. Right. You've got to write that stuff down, because if your loved ones can't get to your stuff, the bank is under no obligation to accommodate them. So if you've got subscriptions coming out every month, your Amazon, whatever, or your magazines or whatever you do, you've got to have all of that stuff written down. And for some people, that in of itself is pretty overwhelming. If you think about all of the online accounts that we have set up as a culture.
It's totally amazing.
It is.
That's a whole nother subject, right?
A whole other subject.
Where to store them and what to do with them. And
yes.
But yeah, so there were some organizations that Kathy had mentioned about contacting, like your gas and water companies, to name a few, your internet provider, if you have lawn care, phone service, your driver's license, notifying them. I mean, like those 20 certificates, depending on somebody's life or lifestyle. Yeah. You may need more than that, because they're all going to want proof that this person passed.
Yeah. A death doesn't become public record for, I believe it's 30 days. And so for the 30 days that you're kind of in limbo right there is when it feels like you've got so much to take care of and you don't have a public death yet.
Yeah.
Like it's not recorded yet. So you're the one who's kind of going through this person's life, recording it as you go. And so that's, another thing too, is that life insurance companies are really good to deal with. And so if you are a person who was looking for that life insurance money to pay for the funeral kind of thing, and you don't have that death certificate yet, go ahead and call the insurance company, because they will tell you what to do to access funds. I know for a lot of people, they do have $10,000 immediately available to help pay for a funeral, but it's their phone calls that need to be made. Right. So.
And these were just a few things that I learned while searching the internet, and Kathy had learned, Kathy, when you're
The hard way.
what was reassuring to me was once I was looking at all this information, I felt more a calmness. Just knowing where to start gave me a sense of peace, seriously. Yeah. And I'm like, and the clubs that somebody may join, Kathy, you mentioned you had joined a couple of clubs.
It's scary to be alone in times when you really need, your people around. There are some online resources that you found that help people kind of get organized, right, Julie? Some web pages.
There is one called everplans.com, and they had all kinds of organizational things that they assist with. And one of them being the process of digital properties, digital assets, how to close accounts, services that might be available when somebody passes. And some were free, the information was free, and some were hiring services if you needed them.
That's amazing.
And so that was one company I ran across. And another one was called, and we haven't really addressed this, but griefplan.com. And it had a lot of information and resource type things too. So that one stuck out with me. Where I was going with the supports is, like Kathy said, you're not alone. And calling on your friends and family, support groups, churches, everybody has some information out there. So it's
they do. And this isn't easy. And yet every single person on the planet goes through it.
Right.
And we're all going to walk the walk at some point in time, unfortunately. But it just seems like life is more joyous and a little bit more carefree and a little bit more fun when you've got it together and you've got a plan. And so if that's the kind of person you are, and some people aren't, for the majority of people, they really want to make sure that when they leave here, they're not making it's not unnecessarily difficult after the loss of my parents, because that's when you kind of start thinking about your own mortality. And that's when I started thinking really about mine was, I got this little book off of Amazon. I know, isn't it terrible? I mean, the title, right? But inside of it is exactly what we're talking about, how to set it all up, what to do, what to do with your personal property and all the other stuff that Julie and I mentioned. So whatever resources you choose to use to get yourself organized, do something. And even if you don't get it all done, even if the information changes over time, it's one of those things where this is a gift to your loved ones.
It really is.
It really, truly, truly is. Yes.
You know what jumped out at me as I was kind of looking different things up was obituary templates, right? I know this is the pre-planning part that none of us do, right? But it was kind of interesting, like maybe we should, because you can talk about your accomplishments or any kind of thoughts that you might want somebody to share with your loved ones after you're gone, that you would have control over what's being printed out there. I just thought, wow.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Thanks for watching today. Hope some of this information may give you a sense of peace or comfort on that you're not alone. There are places to start.
Again, get yourself organized.
Right.
Yeah.
And thanks for watching.
Bye. Thanks so much. Bye now.
Like the content you just watched? Hit the like button or hit subscribe here. If you want to be notified of any future videos, please ring that bell. If there's any topic you'd like to see discussed, leave us a comment in the comment section. Nurse Table Talk. Save time, save money, be informed. Thanks for watching.